Adolf Hitler set in motion his plan to conquer the world and ultimately to annihilate its Jews. Tragically, much of the Christian religion in Europe fell prey to an insidious theology that dismissed the suffering of the Jews. And yet, there were Christians who knew differently. Some of these Christians risked their own lives to become beacons of hope, lights in the darkness. Not all of them were Zionists, but without their courage, there would have been no one left to build a nation when the time did come. Oscar Schindler just wanted to make money with cheap Jewish labor, but he started to see his factory as a sanctuary for his Jews. Saving his Jews from the death trains became his obsession, but it cost him all of his fortune. Somebody once asked him why he did it. He said, "I felt the Jews were being destroyed. I had to help them. There was no choice." But there was a choice, and Oscar Schindler made that choice to save over 1,200 men, women, and children from the Nazi ovens. Irena Sendler was a young Catholic nurse in Warsaw, Poland. When she found out 5,000 Jews were dying every day of starvation and disease behind the walls of the Jewish ghetto, she determined to do something to help. With forged identification papers, she talked her way past the guards and into the crowded ghetto. Irena went to the mothers. She told them if their children stayed where they were, they would die. With gut-wrenching pain, these mothers of Israel said goodbye to their boys and girls and babes in arms, knowing in their hearts they would probably never see them again. And most of them never did. Irena used carts, coffins, the false bottom of a toolbox, and the back of an ambulance to smuggle the children to safety. She placed them in Christian homes, in churches, convents, and Catholic orphanages, wherever they would be safe till after the war. Irena Sendler rescued over 2,500 children from the jaws of death. She said, "Every child saved with my help is the justification of my existence on this earth, not a title to glory." As Hitler's war machine swallowed up Europe, thousands of Jews fled east. In Lithuania, hundreds surrounded the Japanese consulate every day, hoping for visas that could allow them to escape the Nazis. The loyal civil servant, Consul General Chiune Sugihara, knew Tokyo would have nothing to do with these Jews. Yet, as a Christian, he also knew what the right thing to do would be. Sugihara cabled Tokyo 3 times for instructions. When the answer finally came, he was told to refuse anyone who didn't already hold a visa to another country. But Sugihara knew that none of those at the gates of the consulate had anywhere to go, and no country would accept them. So he made a courageous decision. For 29 days, around the clock, Sugihara kept signing visas, 6,000 before he was forced to leave. Even on the train, he did what he could, handing out blank visas as fast as he could, in a desperate attempt to help just one more who would know life, because this quiet, dignified Japanese man dared to follow his heart, regardless of the cost to himself. Corrie and Betsy Tenboom and their aging father Casper were moved by their Christian compassion when they saw what was happening to the Jewish families around them in Harlem. But what could 2 spinsters and an old man do? The answer came knocking at their door. It was a Jewish neighbor desperate to find some place to hide. With a safe room built into Corrie's bedroom, they started opening their home to any Jew who sought their help. For the Tenbooms, they were only doing what any Christian should, but to others, they were traitors. When the Gestapo arrested them, they offered to release Casper if he'd stop hiding Jews. The old man, his eyes ablaze with the fire of faith, told the officer, "Sir, if I go home today, tomorrow I'll open my door to anyone who knocks for help. I would consider it an honor to give my life for God's chosen people." A few days later, Casper ten Boom died in prison. Corrie and Betsy were shipped to the dreaded Ravensbrück concentration camp, where Betsy died. Corrie survived. She spent the rest of her life telling her story of love triumphing over hate in a world of darkness. A similar story occurred in Amsterdam when Miep and Jan Gies risked their own lives trying to save Anne Frank's family. In Hungary, 400,000 Jews had already been shipped in boxcars to the death camp of Auschwitz. Despite all the dangers, Raoul Wallenberg risked his life and volunteered to go to Hungary as a diplomat for Sweden. In the dead of winter, Wallenberg joined the thousands of Jewish prisoners in the death marches to Auschwitz, trying to save anyone he could. He harbored tens of thousands of Jews in buildings he bought as Swedish diplomatic property. The Nazis couldn't touch them. They were on Swedish sovereign soil, or so he convinced the Nazis. One day, he jumped up on a train to Auschwitz, handing out as many passports as hands could reach up to grab them, then demanded the Nazi guards release his citizens. He even convinced the Germans not to blow up the Budapest ghetto and murder the thousands of innocent lives still trapped inside. Raoul Wallenberg saved more than 100,000 Jews. He said, "I could never return to Stockholm knowing I had not done everything possible to save the Jews." Around you are beams of light. Within each one is the name of a person who was saved by courageous Christians. Extend the palm of your hand and meet some of those whose lives were spared by the conviction of these lights in the darkness.